Where did Chris go? Oh, it's in the back. Test, test. Testing. Well, testing.
This is Jamie Allard. I'm on the line.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. We're going to get started here. It's 12:04. I now call to order this special meeting of the Anchorage Assembly. It is Thursday, August 25, 2022. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. Ms. Allard,
Here.
Mr. Solt, Mr. Presverdia,
Here. Check.
Mr. Rivera,
Present.
Mr. Cross, Ms. LaFrance,
Here.
Mr. Constant,
Here.
Ms. Zolotel,
Ms. Zalatel is excused.
Mr. Dunbar,
Here.
Ms. Quinn Davidson,
Here.
Mr. Volland,
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Present.
Madam Chair, you have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I want to note for the record that Mr. Solt is excused. Mr. Byrd, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Constant, would you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Yes. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the indigenous people of a place. It's a public gesture of appreciation for the past and present indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. It's an actionable statement that marks our collective movement toward decolonization and equity. The Anchorage Assembly would like to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. It's with gratitude and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina.
Thank you. And I want to note for the record that Ms. Zalatel is here. And Ms. Allard, you have a point of order. What is your procedural question or point of information?
Yeah, it's a point of information. Thank you, Madam Chair. I was curious on the, what was it? I apologize. Let me flip back on the screen. It's the AM. Is that on just behalf of leadership, or are you submitting that on behalf of all the assembly members? I would like to be excluded from that, and I don't know if I would object to that AM or how we would proceed. Could you please let me know?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Allard. The unnumbered AM, which I will be speaking to shortly, is from assembly leadership only.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't notice if it was specifically of that, but thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Thank you all for joining us today for this special meeting for assembly action on the mayoral vetoes of AR 2022-178S as amended regarding Plan Act funding and the mayoral veto of AR 2022-252 as amended regarding the establishment of a task force to develop an emergency shelter plan for cold weather. Apologies, my microphone is cutting in and out. First, I would ask for a motion to incorporate a supplemental item, an unnumbered laid on the table assembly memorandum from assembly leadership.
So moved.
Second.
A motion to incorporate the supplemental laid on the table AM has been made by Mr. Constant and seconded by Mr. Rivera.
Madam Chair, excuse me.
Ms. Allard, go ahead.
Just a point of information. Would I object to that AM now, or do I wait until the end? Just your recommendation, please.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. The body will be voting on this motion to supplement, incorporate the supplemented item. I'm going to try.
I apologize. You're coming in spotty. I don't know what's going on.
Technical issues. We're trying to get a microphone that works for the chair.
Thank you.
Test, test. Do me a favor. Put that up there.
Testing. I will not touch this microphone. Right here, from here. Okay. Ms. Allard, to respond to your question, this feels a little unnatural. Sorry, we're dealing with technical issues, as the vice chair noted, and I'm trying to make sure that everyone can hear me. To your question as to objection, through your vote.
Madam Chair,
Try mine.
I'm sorry, but just so you know, we still can't hear you. It's real scratchy. I didn't want you to repeat yourself again.
Thank you, Austin.
There's a lot of stuff going on here. Test, test. There we go. You want to play music? Sure. All right.
Check. Here.
I guess I'll try over here.
Check. This is the.
Testing. Okay, hopefully everyone can hear okay. All right, so there is a motion on the floor to incorporate a supplemental laid on the table assembly memorandum from Assembly leadership. It was moved by Mr. Constant, seconded by Mr. Rivera. I do not see any other members in the queue. Members may proceed to vote on the motion to incorporate the supplemental laid on the table memorandum.
Ms. Allard,
No.
Mr. Presverdia,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Cross? No. Ms. LaFrance,
Yes.
Mr. Constant,
Yes.
Ms. Zolotel,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson, was
Chair,
that a yes?
Mr. Soltz as well.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Solt, how do you vote?
No?
And yes, that was a yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. Mr. Voland,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that passes 9-3.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now take up the first item on our agenda. Item 4A, Assembly Action on Mayoral Vetoes of AR 2022-178S as amended. A resolution of the Anchorage Assembly appropriating American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 local fiscal recovery funds in an amount not to exceed $48,258,683 and allocating in the same amount to projects and programs when tendered to the Federal Direct Grants Fund 241-900. What is the will of the body?
Move to override.
Second.
A motion to override the mayoral veto of item 4A has been made by Mr. Constant and seconded by Mr. Rivera. Before we move through the queue, as Assembly leadership noted in the memorandum that was laid on the table and incorporated into the agenda, Assembly leadership is opposed to the mayor's line item vetoes and stands beside the transparent and collaborative process the Assembly used to develop a balanced package of projects that invest in the long-term success of the Anchorage community. The elimination of funding for these projects goes against the Assembly's guiding principles to invest once-in-a-lifetime ARPA funds in long-term projects that aid populations that need it most, address current historical and geographical inequities in our systems that have intensified due to COVID-19 and have a fair and positive impact across the municipality. Not only do the mayor's vetoes undervalue these community-driven projects and invalidate the Assembly's collaborative work, the mayor asserts that this valuable funding opportunity should be directed towards one-time municipal costs where other alternative funding options are available instead of impactful investments that will shape the community for years to come. Furthermore, it stands out that the mayor's vetoes single out projects from marginalized communities such as BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, and people of color, Alaskans, LGBTQ and plus Alaskans, new immigrants, and people facing homelessness. One of the guiding principles for the Assembly for this distribution is to address current historical and geographical inequities in our systems that have been illuminated by COVID-19. It is also striking that the mayor chose to defend projects within the housing focus area, which is a priority area for both the Assembly and the administration. Homelessness and the lack of affordable housing is the most pervasive, dangerous, and widespread issue impacting the health, safety, and economic resilience of the municipality. The housing projects in the ARPA package will go a long way to meeting the municipality's commitment to our community's anchored home plan and are a critical piece of the puzzle for addressing our community's housing and homelessness crisis. So it is disappointing that the mayor is working to block these efforts. Finally, the mayor vetoed 2 district-specific projects that have widespread community support, whose supporters were heavily involved in the process. Members work hard to develop a package that had projects for all regions in the municipality, and by singling out the Fish Creek Daylighting Project and the South Potter Marsh Visitors Center, he has disrupted that balance. I want to note that the Polynesian Association of Alaska and the Pacific Community of Alaska did not receive funding through ARPA, though both had strong proposals that met the Assembly's goals and vision and had many supporters on the Assembly. Unfortunately, because we had to sort through so many proposals, these 2 slipped through the cracks and were left out of the final package. Assembly members are working now to remedy this and are looking into some alternative fund sources. And with that, I will turn to Assembly Council. Mr. Gates, did you want to add anything? Otherwise, I will go through the queue and start with Mr. Constant.
On what specifically?
The legal questions related to the override for the ARPA funding.
Oh, well, I had a mandate that I was trying to bring and distribute that spoke to, thank you. That spoke to sections, it actually went out by email. I had some printing issues, so I apologize. That it spoke to the section 4 and section 10 of the mayor's veto message. That was the veto of section 21 of the resolution. In paragraph 4 of the mayor's message, he said this is, the municipality does not own this land and that this is a state of Alaska project. And it was council. That seemed to imply that the municipality doesn't own the land and couldn't appropriate the funding for this purpose for improvements on state land. And I disagree that that would be a legal basis for denial. So maybe that wasn't the mayor's intended message and it was just the policy decision. So I just made that statement. But more, I think, directly a legal argument the mayor made.
I apologize. It's just a conversation going right in my ear. I'm not hearing most of what Mr. Gates is saying. I apologize. Can we ask him to not have to start over, but we go back a little bit so that I can
Yes.
Madam Chair, point of order. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I can't hear Mr. Cross. Is he using a mic?
Yes, I am.
And Mr. Cross, was also raising a point of order, and we'll make sure your microphone is working, Mr. Cross, because he could not hear what Mr. Gates was saying and asked for a recap summary.
Thank you. Yeah, that's correct. There was a little side conversation going on in my ear, and I apologize. I wasn't able to hear what he was saying, and I apologize if I asked him if he could start over again, or at least 90% of it. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Please let me know if I need to speak up or speak more clearly. Thank you. And so, is this better? Let me get my separation correct for this mic. Okay. So, testing. Okay. To sort of recap the mayor's veto message for the ARPA funding resolution 2022-178, I just wanted to speak to two sections, Section 4 and Section 10. Section 4 that I spoke to recently, I'll recap. It was funding for improvements on state land. The mayor's message seemed to imply that because the municipality doesn't own the land, that it's a state project. And I don't think that's a legal basis for I guess, grounds for his veto. Perhaps it's just a policy decision that the state should fund it and not the city. But the lack of ownership, of municipal ownership, isn't a legal reason, I think, to grounds his veto message. And so that was just the basis of Section 4 that was related to the resolution, Section 21, line item veto. And so I'm back up to where I was, I think. Everybody hear me okay so far? Yeah. The second part was Section 10 of the mayor's veto message. That was a line item veto of resolution Section 47. This was for funding for, funding for a feasibility, it was appropriation to the Assembly for funding for a feasibility and development study and analysis of public restrooms and sanitation in public spaces throughout the municipality. The mayor made 2 points, legal points. One was studies such as these do not meet the threshold for use of these funds, the quote from his veto message. And there's no other elaboration or analysis of why this doesn't meet that threshold. So presumably the threshold he meant was ARPA and the US Treasury's guidance for use of ARPA funds. And I had in my memorandum, which was emailed recently, and I apologize, I'm not sure we have printouts yet. Oh, they are coming. But to sort of summarize, that ARPA and the US Treasury's guidance says the purpose of ARPA was for making investments, and listed in 3 broad purposes. The last one was making investments that support long-term growth and opportunity. This seems to be within that broad purpose. The US Treasury's guidance goes further to say for state and local fiscal recovery funds, the investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, making necessary investments to improve access to clean drinking water, was one of the eligible uses of funds. And further, there was an overview of the US Treasury's final rule that said a necessary investment in infrastructure must be for investments in infrastructure that supply drinking water in order to meet projected population growth, projected to be sustainable over the estimated useful life. So meeting projected population growth seemed to be sort of, well, why this purpose for studying public restrooms and sanitation in public spaces as that the municipality owns and has control over for improvements would be within these really broad rules and the specific, I guess, US Treasury guidance, but without any specifics from the mayor of why he didn't think it met the threshold. I don't have any further analysis on that. I just believe it does meet these thresholds within that guidance. The second part of the mayor's message was about separation of powers. This appropriation was violating separation of powers doctrine in such that such a study should be conducted by various executive branch departments. And so in my opinion, this is not a separation of powers issue. It's a discretionary or public policy or resource allocation issue. One is it could be conducted by departments, this kind of study. Whether it should is sort of a policy decision. The message seems to imply the Assembly cannot appropriate to the Assembly for a study, but we clearly have just charter authority to engage professional consultants for the Assembly in carrying and exercising out its legislative functions. And this is really an informative study for the Assembly that maybe guide future investment in public restrooms, sanitation, ensuring clean drinking water and municipal public spaces. So I see that as an initial step towards something that guides future legislative functions and appropriations completely within the Assembly's power. So that's sort of the summary of that memorandum.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Before I go through the queue, which is extensive, and right now I have Ms. Zalatel, Mr. Constant, Mr. Cross, Ms. Allard, Ms. Quinn-Davidson, and Mr. Dunbar in the queue, I am going to ask for a motion to incorporate this supplemental laid on the table, AM from Assembly Council.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Constant, seconded by Ms. Zalatel. Is there any opposition to incorporating this legal Assembly memorandum? Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Rivera, do you have a point of
Information, yeah. Are we just
Information.
doing the one or are we doing both?
just the one pertaining to this item? Thank
Thank
you. So to clarify the subject, legal analysis of mayor's veto message regarding AR 2022-178S as amended. And this is the one to which Mr. Gates spoke. A motion is on the floor seeking unanimous consent. Hearing and seeing no opposition, this Assembly memorandum unnumbered from Assembly Council pertaining to AR 2022-178S has been incorporated as a supplemental item into the agenda. And now through the queue, starting with Ms. Zalatel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Due to previously declared conflicts, I would ask if the body could take up a bifurcation motion to remove sections 1 and 2 of the veto for consideration separately, and that I be excused.
I would move to bifurcate sections 1 and 2.
Second.
A motion to bifurcate sections 1 and 2 has been made by Mr. Constant and seconded by Mr. Rivera. Are there any members who wanted in the queue in that motion? Okay, I will ask for unanimous consent on the motion to bifurcate. Is there any opposition? Seeing and hearing no opposition, the motion to override the mayoral veto has been bifurcated with sections 1 and 2 to be handled separately from the remainder.
I would move to override section 1 and 2.
And before we continue, Ms. Zalatel is excused. Mr. Constant has made a motion
Second.
to override the mayoral veto of sections 1 and 2. It has been seconded by Mr. Rivera. I will go through the queue and just let me know if you want to speak to this item. Mr. Constant.
I would like to stay in the queue for when we get back to the other section.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Mr. Cross?
I apologize. I was rereading these. Could you restate your motion? I apologize.
The motion on the floor is to override the mayoral veto of sections 1 and 2 of
Yes,
AR 2022-178S.
thank you. And so you speak to this motion?
Yes, did you want
Yeah.
to speak to the bifurcated?
Yeah, I'll speak to the bifurcated
Please.
motion, and thank you. I was just rereading it real quick. When we'll speak specifically to these, although they kind of, we bifurcated, so they're kind of intangible. I mean, they're separated, but I mean, as an entire veto. As you know, I was against section 2 when that was added at the Assembly meeting, the $11,900,000 to appropriate for the Alaska Community Foundation for the Aptel Hotel. Did not undergo due diligence process. Kind of agree with that. You can go back to the Assembly meetings where we spoke to that. I think before we commit those kind of dollars and hand that money out, I thoroughly believe that there needs to be more vetting. I've noticed in this process that a lot of money is being spent to solve the homeless problem, and it is a large problem, and I get that. But I feel as if we've slowly become quicker and quicker to hand out millions of dollars, and we've been lax in digging into our due diligence. Not that it's not an important issue. It's not that it's something that needs to be looked into and aggressively treated.
Point of
However,
order.
I feel as if we've been slower in grilling these projects, and we're quicker to hand out money
Point
with
of
less
order.
due diligence.
Sorry,
So
Mr. Cross.
I support that.
Hate to interrupt.
Thank
I
you,
would
Mr.
support that, Rico.
Cross.
Thank you.
I would make a motion to extend the meeting to 1 o'clock.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion has been made by Mr. Constant to extend to 1 o'clock. It's been seconded by Mr. Cross, seeking unanimous consent. Is there any opposition to the motion to extend? Seeing and hearing none, we are extended until 1 p.m. Apologies, Mr. Cross. That was an interruptible motion since it was 12 approaching the end. Did you finish your comments?
I did, just that I feel as if we've been handing out lots of money quicker. And as we've gone through this process, and we're getting too comfortable with just writing millions of dollars without deeper due diligence. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Next is Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did vote against this as well, of the entire ARPA thing, but one of the main reasons behind it was because of this $11 million. And I just wanted to point out that the Alaska Community Foundation rejected doing supporting this as a due diligence, and that needs to be noted. Not even the Alaska Community Foundation supported this movement, as there was no due diligence, and they were unwilling to do the due diligence on it based on the information they were gathering. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Next is Ms. Quinn Davidson. Did you want in the queue?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. My only point was going to be that I really appreciate Dean doing this analysis for us, but to receive it 5 minutes after the meeting starts, I mean, it's helpful to have the verbal report, but it's just not effective to receive legal analysis during the meeting. So I know you're really busy, but please send those to us at least even an hour in advance. We're often in other meetings or doing things, so even that is cutting it short. Please do this sooner if you're going to provide legal analysis. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. Mr. Dunbar, on line items 1 and 2. No, we want to stay in for the, okay. Mr. Rivera?
Thanks. So a few comments, and I'm just going to speak once rather than speaking on both bifurcations, I suppose. So on some of the points that have been raised by my colleagues, first regarding due diligence, I think there's just a lot of confusion generally around when due diligence is done. You know, if you look at the sockeye, you look at the guest house, and you look at when due diligence was done for those items, it was done after money had been appropriated because you need that money in hand. So of course, due diligence is going to be done. And if it turns out that the hotel or hotels being considered for that 11.878 million don't pan out, then they will look at other properties and other opportunities to meet the goals that the assembly has set out for that pot of money. And, you know, I think folks sometimes forget that there's a host of people doing the work behind the scenes. So I want to thank them for all of that work that help inform the decisions that we make. Also want to, since the Alaska Community Foundation was brought up, I just want to speak some truth there and provide some clarification. So the reason that the Alaska Community Foundation did not accept these funds or were considered to accept these funds had nothing to do with the merits of the project, nothing to do with due diligence. In fact, it had to do with changes in policies that the Community Foundation is considering. They are considering no longer doing in and out funds, meaning put money in, take money out funds. And since this was going to be set up as a separate fund outside of the facilitated process, they just didn't have the time to consider whether they would do that or not. So because it took them quite some time to come to agreement to even set up the fund for the facilitated process. So just want to reiterate, this has nothing to do with due diligence. Everything that was stated was incorrect. You know,
Madam Chair, point of order.
Ms. Allard, what is your procedural question, or what rule do you believe has been broken?
Thank you. I have a fellow assembly member basically telling him I'm lying. He's just not using the word lying. And I have different information than him. And if he has an opinion, that's fine. But
Point of
saying that
order,
I'm
Madam
not
Chair.
telling the
Thank you,
truth
Ms. Allard.
is inappropriate.
Thank
Can
you,
I
Ms.
finish
Allard.
speaking, or am I getting interrupted? I should have the floor.
I have heard your point of order raised, and the chair disagrees. Mr. Rivera, you also have a point of order.
Yeah, I just don't like being interrupted with point of orders that are superfluous.
Please continue, Mr. Rivera.
Thanks. Okay, so I guess just generally, so I can just get this out and we can get this done. You know, when the assembly talks about making investments in housing or in equity, which are pretty much most of the vetoes that were handed out by the mayor, we mean it and we take action on it, positive action on it. And when we make a mistake, like what the chair stated around the Pacific Islander community, we own it and then we try to do our best to deal with it. So that stands in stark contrast with the actions, frankly, the negative and debilitating actions that we have seen from the mayor and the vetoes. So it's very disappointing to see these, especially when members of the assembly have said that we will work with him and his administration to address these concerns, because most of them are, we need to repair the Sullivan, we need to do these other things. We've said we will work with you to address these concerns with the budget surplus that we are expecting. And I hope that the mayor and the administration will be willing to work with the assembly rather than continue to do these vetoes and create harm in the community. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Next is Mr. Solt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll keep it brief. So I'm going to vote no on this particular one. Main reason is section 2, item 2. We turned down a lot of good projects that had very good plans put together, and we just don't have a plan at the moment. Not that I don't trust the Rasmussen Foundation, I do. I would just rather see this money hit the streets faster rather than in need or in search of a project. Now, hopefully, I imagine this will pass, but hopefully I'm wrong, and the Rasmussen Foundation will have something lined up rather quickly. Again, I have a lot of faith in that organization. I just want to see these funds potentially go to other sources a little bit quicker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solt. Next is Ms. Allard. I'll go back through the queue a second time. Ms. Allard?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, Madam Chair. I was just going to ask if Mr. Byrd has any input in regards to Dean's legal analysis, and if not, that's fine. I was just wondering if he had an opinion on that, please. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Byrd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, Ms. Allard, the only thing that I think that I would disagree with Mr. Gates on is the separation of powers issue and the appropriation directly to the assembly regarding the feasibility study for bathrooms. I think it's the administration's position that that's an administrative task and not a task of the legislative branch. Other than that, just after briefly reviewing it in the last few minutes, I don't see anything that jumps out at me. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Thank you, Mr. Byrd. I have two members back in the queue, and then I'm hoping we can vote on this motion. Next is Mr. Constant, and then Mr. Cross.
All right. In fact, I was in the queue to speak about that separation of powers issue. The charter and the code absolutely allow us to seek input, to seek advice, to seek plans. In fact, we did it just a couple of years ago with the Port of Alaska. We appropriated approximately $50,000, hired our own consultants because we couldn't get clear numbers and a good sense of what our direction was. And so I completely personally rebut any argument that the Assembly cannot or should not take this on. And in fact, I've been asking for action for years on this and have seen nothing. And so rather than wait, let's do it ourselves.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Mr. Cross?
Yes, thank you. I just want to speak to Mr. Rivera's comment that I made a false comment, and I would like to just say that we disagree in opinion of what adequate due diligence is. You have a standard that is lower than mine, and that's okay. I respect that. If you feel there is, I don't think that's a false comment. I feel as if you've reached a level that you're satisfied with, and I'm not. That is not a false comment. That is not a misrepresentation of facts. And personally, I really like you, but I'm kind of, that frustrates me. And I think you're better than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Next is Mr. Gates.
Yes, thank you. I just want to point out that the legal points that I made and then that Mr. Bird also responded to and Mr. Constant recently commented on, those were not related at all to sections 1 and 2, which we are considering right now. And Ms. Salato is out of our room, so I think that that should be repeated when she returns when we get to the rest of the vote.
I'm sorry, Dean, would you repeat that last part, please?
When Ms. Salato returns, she maybe benefit from hearing Mr. Bird's comments as well as Mr. Constant's that were about sections 4 and 10.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. I don't see any other members in the queue. However, I understand that a member was trying to dial in, and I just want to confirm that we have Mr. Perez-Verdia on the line. Okay, thank you. Where's Mr. Constant? Seeing no other members in the queue. And if folks on the line could please mute. Members may proceed to vote on the motion to override the mayoral vetoes of AR 2022-178S as bifurcated to include line items 1 and 2.
Miss Allard,
No.
Mr. Solt,
No.
Mr. Perez-Verdia,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Cross,
No.
Miss LaFrance,
Yes.
Mr. Constant,
Yes.
Ms. Zolotel is recused, Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Voland,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that passes 8-3.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Constant?
I would move to override the remaining vetoes.
Second.
A motion to override the mayoral vetoes of AR 2022-178S as amended, as bifurcated to include sections 3 through 10 has been made by Mr. Constant and seconded by Mr. Rivera. I will go through the queue. And actually, Mr. Constant and Mr. Dunbar were in the queue on for these items, and then Ms. Zolotel. So first is Mr. Constant.
Thank you. There's a lot to be said about which projects were chosen to be vetoed or why. And in the discussion of the original item, we had a number of proposed amendments and a lot of conversation around removing funds from one organization, the Alaska Black Caucus, which ended up on the veto list, which which was expected because of the rhetoric of the process. And there's some irony to the statement that the veto claimed that it was because it could be more equitable and maybe should go to organizations that the mayor and his team believe, as opposed to the appropriating body. I'm going to speak a little bit by reading an email that was received by the director of the Alaska Black Caucus so that people understand the nature of the problem and why we continue to invest in equity, real equity, not the equity that's suggested by the veto. An email from Stefan Kozma, white privilege card. Are you seriously stupid enough to think that a Filipino was able to avoid a ticket because she showed the cops a joke white privilege card? This is the problem with your kind. Always in victim mentality mode. Always a chip on the shoulder. And always super uppity. This is why nobody wants y'all living next door or in the same classroom or even the same country. You live in Alaska due to the white man. You use white man's technology on a daily basis. And you have no idea how lucky y'all are not to be back in Africa chasing meerkats with sticks and loincloths like y'all's great-great-grandpappies. Show some respect and appreciation for God's sake. Y'all would have a lot more success in life with that attitude. Stefan Kozma. I strongly support the override of this veto based simply on the fact that the need far outstrips the resources available to confront the dark impulses that exist deeply within our community. I have lots of voicemails I could share, but I won't waste the time. That message speaks loud and clear.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Next is Mr. Dunbar, and then Ms. Zalatel, and then Mr. Cross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You can remove it from the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. Ms. Zalatel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd actually like to move to bifurcate number 4 from the veto package, which is
Second.
the 771 Fish and Game South Potter Marsh item.
Second.
A motion has been made by Ms. Zalatel to further bifurcate AR 2022-178S to remove line item 4. It has been seconded by Mr. Constant. Ms. Zalatel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item has always given me a little bit of heartburn. It's a lot of money for public restrooms, which I support, but in one area. And given that projects that seem quite worthy have come to light that were missed, I think that these funds could probably be better used towards some of those other projects. We're going to try to see how we can fit into the package. I also want to note that this item was really championed by an assembly member who didn't support the overall ARPA package. And that also gave me pause because when we discussed these, we were trying to build consensus. And when the final votes were tallied, the champion of this project did not vote for the overall ARPA package. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Zalatel. Mr. Cross, I have you in the queue, but I don't know, did you want to speak on the motion to?
No, we
bifurcate?
can vote to bifurcate, then put me back in the queue for the main motion. Thank you.
Okay, I'll keep you in the queue for the main motion. I don't see any members in the queue on the motion to bifurcate to remove line item 4. Seeing no other members in the queue, members may proceed to vote on the motion to further bifurcate the motion to override the mayoral vetoes of AR 2022-178S as amended, as bifurcated, to take up items 3 through 10. This motion would remove line item 4 from that bifurcated motion. Is that clear? Okay. Members may proceed to vote.
Ms. Allard on the motion to bifurcate? Ms. Allard?
I'm here. I'm sorry, the call dropped and I called back in. No.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Solt?
No.
Mr. Perez-Verdia?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
Yes.
Ms. LaFrance?
No.
Mr. Constant?
Yes.
Ms. Zolotal?
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar?
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Volland?
No.
Mr. Peterson?
No.
Madam Chair, that motion fails 6-6.
Madam Chair, can
have
I
a different
intervene
count.
for just 1 second? I apologize.
Yeah, can you
Hold
read
on,
back
Ms.
the
Allard.
votes? Thank you.
Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Yes. Ms. Allard voting no. Mr. Solt voting
Yes,
no.
She's just reading it back.
So the clerk is going to read back the votes on the motion to.
It was the question of the vote because my call dropped and I don't recall the actual question. I apologize. I think I got back on.
Okay, so let's have the clerk go through the votes, and if we need to reconsider or take some other action, we'll decide after we hear. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So on the motion to bifurcate to pull section 4, Ms. Allard voted no. Mr. Solt, no. Mr. Perez-Verdia, yes. Mr. Rivera, yes. Mr. Cross, yes. Ms. LaFrance, no. Mr. Constant, yes. Ms. Zolotal, yes. Mr. Dunbar, yes. Ms. Quinn Davidson, yes. Mr. Volland, no. Mr. Peterson, no.
I got 7-5.
Yes, yes, yes. 6. LaFrance, no. Constant, yes. Alto.
We're on that. That's the main motion. The bifurcate one will come next.
Chair Constant, you are correct. The vote is 7-5. I apologize. I had Ms. Zolotel's vote down incorrectly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that the item has been bifurcated to remove line item 4. We are now back on the motion to override the mayoral vetoes of AR 2022-178S as amended and bifurcated to take up line items 3 and line items 5 through 10. I'll go back to Mr. Cross on
Thank
this
you.
motion,
Yeah, thank
and
you.
then Mr. Dunbar.
First, I'm going to speak to the Assembly memorandum before I speak to this because I think they build off each other. And I think it's important to realize that in the memorandum where it says the mayor's veto single out regional projects and projects for marginalized communities such as BIPOC. We did that when we didn't include the Polynesian community and we didn't include seniors. We didn't do Chugach senior housing. Like, to go back and say, because you didn't fund this, but you're willing to fund this means that you have some sort of evil intent, I think is disingenuous. Additionally, listen, that guy's email, that's crap. And I think we all would like him to take a long walk off a short pier. Okay, got it. But I can disagree with funding the ABC for the second time and still support them and want that money to go elsewhere. And one of the reasons is because in number 2, you guys, we're all forgetting that we sat here in this room and we said we were going to be intentional about not funding people who had received previous ARPA funds. But we gave them money a second time and ignored the Polynesian community and other individuals that we called disparaged communities. And so I can understand that they can be a worthy cause, but disagree with the funding at this time because we neglected other sources of money and we have other things when, again, our very own guiding principles, which were not included in paragraph 2, was that we were going to be intentional about not funding people a second time. And we did it anyway. Meanwhile, when I go through the other ones here, listen, I don't think that we should, under further consideration, I don't think should we be funding studies. We also said we didn't say shovel ready. We wanted things that were immediate. And I don't know if some of these studies are necessarily a great investment. And also, when it goes into number 9, the Conquer COVID Coalition, under further investigation, that's mostly advertising money about the importance of getting vaccines in a workplace environment. And the pharmaceutical industry is making $98 million a day off the vaccine. They can pay for their own advertising. They don't need us. And so if you don't know there's a vaccine out there, another $250,000 isn't going to make a difference. So again, and by the way, I at the same time, I'm going to support the veto. I'm going to support the mayor's veto. Number 10, I would prefer that we actually did fund, because our public restrooms are a mess. Would love to see that 100,000, but we don't always get everything we want. We learned that in this process. So I would encourage you to support the mayor's veto. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. I have Ms. Allard, Mr. Solt, and Ms. Quinn Davidson in the queue, and Mr. Constant. Go ahead, Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say, kind of reiterate the same things that Kevin had said. And we did agree that we weren't going to fund organizations that had already received funds before. And it doesn't mean we don't support that organization. It just means that there are other organizations that hadn't received funds. In regards to the Polynesian community, I did bring an amendment forward for the House of Transformation, and it was overwhelmingly voted down. And we were trying to bring other organizations with different diversities involved. And I was point blank told in writing by our sitting assembly attorney to stop making amendments, that they needed to get on with things. So I was going to bring other amendments forward in regards to diversity. So I too resent the fact that anything's implied saying that individuals may not support an organization just because of their demographics, their race, or anything else. But I did vote no on the overall packet because there are valuable items that I did believe needed to help, but I also believed that there were organizations that didn't need the funds, that needed to go to other areas. And to be very clear, District 2 could have done without any of the things that we put in that district. The reason we did what we did and pushing for the organizations in District 2 that we did was because bottom line is, if I hadn't, we weren't going to get anything. Zero. And I know that. So I actually had to yield to the majority of the assembly just to get my district a little bit of money. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. And before I move through the queue, I'm going to turn to the Vice Chair for a motion to extend.
Thank you. I'd move to extend another half an hour. We hopefully won't need that, but.
Second.
A motion to extend to 1:30 has been made by Mr. Constant and seconded by Ms. Zalatel, seeking unanimous consent. Seeing and hearing no opposition, we are extended until 1:30. Next in the queue is Mr. Solt, then Ms. Quinn Davidson, then Mr. Constant. Go ahead, Mr. Solt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted a couple things. First, the statement that Mr. Constant read, I don't think anyone in this room would ever support something like that. And it's just a shame that still exists in today's society and people like that are out there. So just want to express my disappointment with that kind of rhetoric. Second, I really don't like these kind of omnibus bills, and you'll find as you get to know me better, I'll end up voting no quite a few times when things are packaged together like this. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't vote, where you might have 50 things you might agree with 21 and not the other 29, and therefore you're torn. I would have much rather seen sort of a matrix vote where you vote for each one individually. I'm all for bifurcating. I think it's a better way to go. And maybe it's just my my naivety and being new to politics and the assembly on how this actually works. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Solt. Next is Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I just wanted to apologize to Celeste for that disgusting email, and thank Mr. Cross and Mr. Solt for publicly stating their sort of disinterest, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but their lack of support for that sort of message. And I think folks like Celeste and other people of color in our community are experiencing that kind of message every day. And It's one of the reasons that we really need to invest in the types of projects that we did through the ARPA package. I also want to just comment on, frankly, sort of the awkwardness of a bunch of white people talking about which groups of color deserve, sort of in quotes, or should get these funds. I find it personally very awkward, and it's a reminder to me why we need to diversify this assembly. And I will do what I can to continue trying to recruit members and candidates who better reflect the diversity of our community. Also, I'm just so tired of us all fighting all the time. And I think we don't need to pit groups against each other. You know, we can acknowledge that there's only so much money. We made our best decision collaboratively. We all compromised. And what we ended up with was a package that didn't include everyone. And that doesn't mean we can't go find funds. There are a lot of us interested after we had the two members from the Pacific community coming to speak to us. A bunch of us scrambled during that meeting even to talk with Desiree and with Claire about ways that we could find funding to make, you know, one or maybe both of those projects happen. So I want this group of predominantly white assembly members to please not use people who are coming to us with legitimate needs and pitting them against each other and using that as discussion pieces. It's disrespectful, and I'm not speaking to anyone in particular. It just in general, I want us to please be really thoughtful about not doing that. The last piece is in response to Mr. Solt's comment about the omnibus bills. And I think, Mr. Solt, that you'll find that these are all about compromise. And, you know, was everything in there something I was excited about? No. But I didn't vote no because I support the collaborative process and I support compromise. And I think that if you want to support compromise, you're going to have to get used to voting yes for things like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. Next is Mr. Constant and then Mr. Volan, and hopefully we will get to a vote.
Thank you. We had two members in the room speak to a memory of us making an agreement not to fund something for the second time. In the first ARPA tranche, we funded House of Transformation, a Polynesian organization, at $1.6 million, a massive investment. And then one of the members who remembers an agreement that we wouldn't fund something the second time tells us that she made an amendment to take money from the Alaska Black Caucus to send to the House of Transformation, who she should have known because she voted that we already sent them money. However, I have a different memory. We never made an agreement not to fund anybody a second time. And so what I have here is our guiding principles, vision for ARPA fund allocation. The Anchorage Assembly recognizes that this one-time funding through the ARPA must be wisely spent to allow it to do as much good in our community as possible. To achieve this goal, the Assembly envisions funding projects focusing on economic resilience, increasing our competitiveness as a destination city, making all parts of our city vibrant and welcoming. Successful proposals should provide long-term investments and be transparent and equitable. Projects should be aligned as much as possible with the Assembly's ARPA priorities: child and family support, housing, economic development, and healthy workforce. In addition, proposals are encouraged to speak to the Assembly's approved 2022 goals and priorities. Priorities for ARPA fund allocation: child and family support, housing, economic development, including community investment in downtown and healthy workforce. Guiding principles: need aid populations that need it the most and address current and unique challenges, including COVID-19 impact and inflation. Geography: have a fair and positive impact. Alignment: leverage other resources. Feasibility: consider the financial resources and timing need for implementation. Informed: consider the most recent data and public input. And equity: address current historical and geographic inequities. And so I don't have in my list of total agreements that we would do that. Kevin, it seems to have a graphic that suggests something different.
Apologize, but I literally have the notes we had written on our wall that says specifically sharing ARPA funds across groups that did not receive resources in prior rounds. was written on our wall in big blue ink.
Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Okay.
And one last note. I would say that I was notified here that the House of Transformation is actually a Polynesian run organization, not specifically for Pacific Islanders. They don't actually serve that community is what I'm told. But with all of that said, it might have been written on one of those sticky papers, but it wasn't an agreement that I agreed to in the end. We consolidated to that final list. And I just find it ironic, and I'm not speaking to you, that someone would make that argument and then have made an amendment to take the money from the Alaska Black Caucus to give to an organization that had already received funds. So enough in the weeds. I'm going to give back the floor, and I strongly urge your support of this override.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Mr. Volan?
You can take me out of the queue. I'm ready to vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Volan. Seeing no other members in the queue, members may proceed to vote on the motion to override the mayoral vetoes of AR 2022-178S as bifurcated to include line items 3 and line items 5 through 10.
Madam Chair, I put myself in queue. I apologize. I just have 2 words.
Ms. Allard, actually, we have proceeded to a vote.
Ms.
Stephanie
Allard?
Taylor.
Ms. Allard, how do you vote?
Yes. No. The answer is no. Not to override. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Solt?
I'll vote yes.
Mr. Perez-Verdia?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Cross?
No.
Ms. LaFrance?
Yes.
Mr. Constant?
Yes.
Ms. Zolotel? Yes. Mr. Dunbar?
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson?
Yes.
Mr. Voland?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Madam Chair, that passes 10-2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there a motion pertaining to overriding the mayoral veto of line item 4?
Move to override.
Second.
A motion to override the mayoral veto of AR 2022-178S as bifurcated to take up line item 4 has been made by Mr. Constant and seconded by Mr. Volan. Mr. Constant, did you want to speak to the motion?
Actually not supportive of it. I just get it on the floor and get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Constant.
Ms. LaFrance, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I urge a yes vote to override the mayoral veto of this item. This one is a really great example of collaboration between the municipality in the form of the community council and the assembly and the state of Alaska. And these funds would go to towards toilets and pathways that will transform a paved parking lot into something that is economically valuable in terms of supporting tourism. And we know that there aren't enough of these types of facilities at these highly used areas. And one of the benefits too, and we know there's a huge demand for outdoor recreation and connection to nature. This is something that became especially clear during the pandemic. One thing that is very valuable about this project is that while the state of Alaska does not have the funds to provide adequate toilets and safe pedestrian circulation, it will maintain the facilities. So we need to provide some investment into this. And if we do that, then we will reap that benefit of the state continuing to maintain it. And again, in District 6 in particular, we get very heavy use of trails and access to the Chugach and to trails and other kinds of recreational facilities. And we need to provide the infrastructure support so that it works. And so again, I urge the body to please override the mayoral veto on this item. We can find other funding sources to address some of the other proposals that members are interested, such as this from the Polynesian community, and taking up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Alatel, did you want in the queue? And then Mr. Volan. Go ahead, Ms. Alatel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one, I still would, I don't support overriding the veto for a couple of reasons. One is I think this money could be reduced actually as we worked through the AMATS funding, particularly as we had the conversation about recreational trails and utilitarian trails. The trails portion could be picked up through another funding source if it's going to connect pedestrian trails to a recreational opportunity. So I think that there are other funding sources more directly tied to the state that could pick this up or pick up a portion of this. I also think it's a really large price tag for adding amenities to a state project, project. I appreciate that they're going to maintain it. However, we've seen the need come through for ARPA and had to make some really tough choices. And when it boils down to it, I think that we have some other projects that honestly would be a bigger bang for our buck, particularly around the assembly priorities. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Alatel. Next is Mr. Volan, then Mr. Cross, and then Mr. Salt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be voting yes to override out of respect for the collaborative process that we went through. You know, this particular item, I recognize it's not just folks in South Anchorage who use this as a resource. My friends and I, we go ice skating there. A lot of people visit this area. But this was not a high priority of mine. I guess I hope that the members representing South Anchorage will recognize the ongoing need for collaboration and compromise. And that's why I will be supporting that we move this project forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Volan. Next is Mr. Cross, then Mr. Salt, and then Ms. Quinn-Davidson. Mr. Cross?
Yeah, originally I was going to support this because I didn't, I was going to support the mayor's veto because you made a great point, Suzanne, regarding that the state's going to continue to maintain this. And that's important to me. I kind of look at this one when I was really on the fence because it's like, do we pay to restripe the state highways and fix their potholes, even though it benefits our city? And so at what point do we invest? But I do think it's important for our South Anchorage. As regarding the construction, I think it's important to realize that one, it's going to be a septic holding tank. Those are silty grounds. That's also probably a Class A wetlands. So there's probably going to have to be a Corps of Engineers study. So the cost of that is just going to be that it's going to be an exhaustive process to put a bathroom on wetlands. And if anybody's dealt with wetlands, you realize it's $10,000 just to start your application process. That's before you even get down into the weeds. So, so I originally was going to support the mayor's veto, but under further discussions, I think I'm going to support the override. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Next is Mr. Salt, then Ms. Quinn-Davidson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll also urge yes vote on this. Starting to get the process, hence supported things in the last round or last vote that I probably wouldn't have supported. So kind of go to the collaborative process. Like
Mr. Salt, you're breaking up a bit.
Sorry. This is the South Potter's Marsh area where it's used by all of Anchorage. I think it'd be a great improvement for all of Anchorage and for those traveling down Stewart Highway. And I urge your support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salt. Ms. Quinn-Davidson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be quick. I think Mr. Volan said exactly what I wanted to say. In the spirit of compromise, I will support the override for this project, although it was certainly not at the top of my list. And I just really appreciated the process and all of the members weighing in on what was most important to them. So I'll be supporting the override. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. Seeing no other members in the queue, members may proceed to vote on the motion to override the mayoral veto of AR 2022-178S as bifurcated to override line item 4.
Ms. Allard,
No.
Mr. Salt,
Yes.
Mr. Presverdia,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Cross,
Yes.
Ms. LaFrance,
Yes.
Mr. Constant,
I have been persuaded. The answer is yes.
that was a yes, Mr. Constant? Yes.
That was a yes.
Thank you. Ms. Zolotel,
No.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Voland,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that passes 10-2.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We will now take up the next item on our agenda, 4B, Assembly Action on Mayoral Veto of AR 2022-252 as amended, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly establishing a task force to develop an emergency shelter plan for cold weather. First, I will ask for a motion to
Madam Chair.
incorporate.
Point of order, before we even get started on this item, may I be excused due to my conflict?
Yes, Ms. Zolotel, you are excused. First, I will ask for a motion to incorporate a supplemental laid on the table Assembly Memorandum from Assembly Counsel's Office, subject legal analysis of Mayor's veto message, REAR 2022-252 as amended.
Move to incorporate.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Volan, seconded by Mr. Constant. Seeking unanimous consent. Is there any opposition to the motion to incorporate the supplemental laid on the table AM from Assembly Counsel's Office? Seeing and hearing no opposition, this unnumbered AM has been incorporated as a supplemental item to AR 2022-252 as amended per line item 4B of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to override.
Second.
A motion to override the mayoral veto of AR 2022-252 as amended has been made by Mr. Constant and seconded by Mr. Rivera. Before I go through the queue, I want to note that if no action is taken to develop a cold weather sheltering plan, the total scope of problem could be hundreds of our most vulnerable residents who struggle with housing being left to survive unsheltered on the streets and in our parks and public spaces. This is because our city's past plans and practices are no longer applicable now that the Sullivan has been closed as a mass care facility and the former site for cold weather emergency sheltering, the Beans Cafe building, was sold and is no longer available for such a purpose. At the August 17 meeting of the Assembly Homelessness and Housing Committee, the committee anticipated getting a draft plan from the administration, or at least a verbal update on the plan, but the administration did not submit a plan or attend the meeting to share an update. When it became apparent that the administration did not have a plan, the Assembly passed a resolution to convene a task force to develop a cold weather shelter plan and submit the plan to the Assembly by September 22 so that this problem can be resolved before winter hits. The task force is open to a broad range of local service providers. assembly members and the administration. And if the administration does issue a plan during the time the task force is meeting, they've expressed a willingness to work with that plan. So therefore, it is disappointing that instead of sharing their own plan or participating on this community task force, the mayor is choosing to quibble with the legal standing of an assembly task force. We have a memo from legal counsel, and I'll turn to Mr. Gates in a moment. But I want to note first that it is not new or unusual to form a task force. In just doing some cursory research, there are multiple examples of task forces created by the Assembly and the mayor to convene stakeholders and conduct research on a current issue and provide recommendations to the municipality. There was even a task force that was created by the mayor during his first weeks in office, and Assembly members have received copies of several resolutions that were passed to create task forces. And so now I will turn to Mr. Gates to walk through the legal memo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So again, let me know if I need to speak up or if my mic isn't working. So just to summarize, the main part of the memo is first to acknowledge what the mayor has characterized this resolution as, and basically, I believe the mayor misunderstands the resolution and what it does. So he characterizes that being a resolution doesn't have force of law, that it forms a municipal board or commission, and that it bypasses the administration implementing Title 16. So I think there were four main points in the memo from my office. First was whether this resolution or veto is sort of, regardless of that, task force can form, members can gather and discuss this issue and propose something to the Assembly, just as their right to peaceably assemble and petition their government. And so that simply exists with or without this resolution. This resolution was an expression of the legislative will that a group of subject matter experts get together and propose recommendations to the Assembly, or to more specifically to the chair of the Homeless and Housing Committee of the Assembly. Excuse me if I get that name correct. The transposing the words. And a second point, the resolution doesn't establish a board or commission. Establishing a board or commission is provided in charter. It's the Assembly may establish boards and commissions, and we do so. They're set out in Title 4. This resolution didn't even strive to establish a board or commission, so it's more a matter of the mayor trying to pigeonhole this into, this is trying to do something which is prohibited, but that isn't exactly at all what the resolution was trying to do. It doesn't direct the task force how to conduct itself. It doesn't direct how members are qualified. So forth, it says the convening organization select members. So it's very distinct from how the charter directs the Assembly to form a board or commission, which it wasn't trying to do with this resolution. It's also, as Madam Chair mentioned, consistent with many instances in our history of the municipality of establishing task forces by a resolution, or as mayors current and past have done by various modes. So a third point from the memorandum is that the charter doesn't require the Assembly to use an ordinance to extend an invitation for subject matter experts to meet and make a recommendation. And then the test by the charter is whether the municipality or the Assembly, in exercising legislative powers, has done something that's prohibited by law or charter. And so the charter about boards and commissions, or actually anywhere in the charter, doesn't prohibit forming a task force of this type that we have found. So that action is simply within our home rule powers to exercise legislative powers. Lastly, the mayor asserts that this would bypass the administration in implementing Title 16, but the resolution simply, it's not an executive body, clearly, per the resolution. It doesn't execute anything. It's called weather plan for the municipality or anything. It develops a plan that can present to the municipality as recommendations to the assembly. And the assembly or the mayor is free to accept, reject, adopt it, or do nothing. So it doesn't really execute anything or implement anything. It's simply recommendations for a plan. That's the task force is assigned.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Next in the queue is Mr. Rivera, then Ms. Allard, then Mr. Constant.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I must say, this is probably the strangest veto that we've gotten so far, from my perspective. So I just want to go back to why we did this, right? So this resolution creating the task force was done because the Assembly passed an appropriating resolution on July 26th that required that for the first time ever forward funded emergency shelter. And part of accessing those funds from the health department was that they need to present a plan, an emergency shelter cold weather plan, to the Assembly's Committee on Housing and Homelessness on August during our committee meeting, and they did not do that. Now, I will say, because there's a little bit of consternation about this point, and I stated it on the record, that I did have a chance to meet with the Chief of Staff on Monday, so a couple days prior to the committee meeting. During my meeting with the Chief of Staff, she did tell me, so basically walk me through the table of contents for what would eventually maybe become a plan, but I did not get any details. And essentially there's still policy decisions that we're making. And when I asked, okay, well, sounds like you got a lot of work to do. Are you going to be able to present this on Wednesday? I got a yes, we'll be able to present this on Wednesday. The record shows what happened from there. The intent of the resolution was for us to work with the community, work with the administration, and come up with suggestions for us to consider. These suggestions, in no way does the resolution require or force the administration or the assembly to do anything the task force comes up with. I think it's important that we are realistic about what this veto is saying. This veto is saying that the mayor is the only one that can give the assembly permission for us to have conversations in the community. And I think that's an outrageous statement to make. The mayor can't stop us from having dialogues with our community. And regardless of what happens today, whether we override this or not, the task force is going to continue meeting. They've already stated that intent. They're going to continue meeting because they're tired of the politics. They want to do the work, and they are going to do the work. And I have every bit of confidence that they are going to produce a great plan, hopefully working in collaboration with the administration. So with that, I'll just make a final urge. It would be wonderful if, and maybe I'm asking for too much, but if this vote was 12-0 to override the mayor's veto, because I think we really need to send a strong message that yes, we as the assembly can create task forces. We can have conversations with the community and ask them to help us to solve the problems which exist in the municipality. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Mr. Constant, on a motion to extend.
Motion to extend is in order. So I move to extend another 15 minutes.
Is there a second?
I know folks have to leave.
Second.
Thank you.
The motion on the floor by Mr. Constant is to extend to 1:45. It's been seconded by Mr. Cross. Is there any opposition? Seeing and hearing none, we are extended. I will continue through the queue. Next is Ms. Allard, then Mr. Constant, then Mr. Cross, then Mr. Solt, and then Mr. Perez-Verdia. Go ahead, Ms. Allard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to ask, and I appreciate Dean's analysis, if it's possible for Mr. Byrd, where are we at? Do we agree with that? Do we not agree with it? My question about that is, there's some valid points that are brought up by Assembly members and Mr. Gates in the past and the tradition we've had. Could you speak a little bit more on why did the mayor veto that, please?
Go ahead, Mr. Byrd.
On a legal aspect.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the chair, Ms. Allard, we did look at the historic use of task forces, but before I get to that, I want to just say, first and foremost, Mr. Gates has clarified a lot of things, I think, for the municipal attorney's department regarding the legality and the enforceability of the resolution. If this is an entity that has been established, as I understood it, by the Assembly, first and foremost, there are open meetings requirements that have to be fulfilled. And I want to advise, this is the administration's position, but I think it should be everybody's position. Task forces is listed as a discrete entity within municipal code, boards, commissions, task forces, and committees. That means you've got to list stuff with the municipal clerk as defined in another section. And as you all know, that's a written statement of the date, time, place, and subject of a meeting. So if we're operating on the presumption that this is a task force that was established by a municipal body, and that's the assumption we've been working on, then at a minimum, we've got to fulfill the open meetings requirements under code and under Alaska law. Like I said, I appreciate what Mr. Gates has presented here. I think in large part from what I've seen, I am in agreement. What I would highlight is the historic nature of task forces. Usually it has been a joint venture, more or less, by the mayor and the assembly. There's exceptions to that. Mr. Gates included one. That was the Citizens Task Force on Public Testimony from 2013. That was sponsored, I believe, by Assembly Member Elvie Gray Jackson. Jane Angvik, who was the original charter member, was the chair of that committee. That dealt with, as I read it, Bill of Rights sorts of provisions under the charter regarding citizen participation in assembly meetings. That is, it was something that was specific both to charter rights and specific to the way the assembly conducted its own business. An exception on the other side is, and this is also in code, but it's something that's been repealed, is the recycling task force back in 1997 when Mayor Wirch was there. There's a steering committee set up. They then petitioned to have a task force, and the task force asked the mayor to establish them as a, quote, advisory task force. It existed for a little over 10 years, but it was under the boards and commissions. That is where task forces, when they appear in municipal code, they appear under the boards and commissions provisions of municipal code. As I understand Mr. Gates's position, and I think the assembly's position, what was established by resolution last Wednesday is potentially nothing that has municipal force of law. Given that my reading the text of the resolution, which was, there were quite a few shalls, that is the shall, the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness shall convene and shall do other things, that's an imperative. It appears in some of the other task force resolutions, but it doesn't appear in all of them. A lot of it's aspirational, intentional language rather than shalls. So I'd be happy to work with Mr. Gates on this to find out exactly what this task force is. But I want to advise the body again, if this is something that's a municipal body, we've got a notice under open meetings procedures. And if this is something that is aspirational to advise, it should be made very clear that it falls outside of the advisory bodies that are included in the code provisions for boards and commissions. That's the administration's position. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Next is Mr. Constant.
Thank you. And Ms. LaFrance and I somehow found ourselves after the midnight hour perusing the assembly portal for public records and chatting back and forth about all of the various task forces that have been created since the first one we were able to find that was duly executed in 1986 by, quote, members of the assembly, resolution naming a permanent and significant community feature in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King and appointing a task force to bring its recommendations to the assembly in 90 days. And that one wasn't relating to assembly function. We have the one that Mr. Byrd recognized, which was a discussion by Member Gray Jackson, Member Trainee and Steele in 2013 that established a task force, the Citizens Task Force, to advise and assist the Assembly in development of procedures governing conduct of public hearings. One was done with a mayor, yes, but in fact, it was done by two members and the mayor was invited along at the end. And that was a lovely one by Member Dyson and Chair Dunbar at the time to establish a task force to work on a project that's yet to go to its conclusion, improving the assembly's official or the municipality's official seal. And then finally, one that was pretty darn significant, if you ask me, and we had to run around and find a signed version because the version in the portal wasn't signed, but through the records search, we found it. And it's AR 2022, AR number 94-187S as amended, a resolution of the Anchorage Municipal Assembly requesting the administration to develop a plan to address the dramatic increase in Anchorage. It sets up a task force. And so that was by Assembly members Campbell and Trainee. And it was pretty damn shocking to see a veto message that essentially says you need dad's permission to have a conversation with the community. That's not how this works at all. We are co-equal. We have the right to meet with our public. We have the right to ask questions of the public. We have a right to seek input from the public. And we are going to do that. So finally, I will say, for some reason, and it's common for some kind of members of this government to continue with their ad hominem attacks against a member who has a clearly declared conflict and who has exercised good judgment and stayed well within the ethical bounds because she has a job in which she is tackling these difficult issues. And yet at every turn, certain members, and the mayor now in a veto message has taken the opportunity to impugn the reputation of that member. And I speak against that right now. And I call the question.
The question has been called by
Second.
Mr. Constant. It has been seconded by Mr. Voland. This is a non-debatable motion and requires a supermajority. If it passes, then it will bring the original question on the motion to override the mayoral veto of AR 2022-252 as amended before the body without any further discussion. Members may proceed to vote on the motion to call the question.
Ms. Allard,
Yes.
Mr. Salt,
Yes.
Mr. Perez-Verdia,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Cross,
No.
Ms. LaFrance,
Yes.
Mr. Constant,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Voland,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that passes 10-1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Members may now proceed to vote on the motion to override the mayoral veto of AR 2022-252 as amended.
Ms. Allard,
No.
Mr. Salt,
Yes.
Mr. Perez-Verdia,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Cross,
Yes.
Ms. LaFrance,
Yes.
Mr. Constant,
Yes.
Mr. Dunbar,
Yes.
Ms. Quinn Davidson,
Yes.
Mr. Voland,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, that passes 10-1.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I understand there is an AMATS meeting and members are excused to attend. That brings us to audience participation. And so Mr. Voland, Mr. Rivera, and Mr. Dunbar are leaving to attend AMATS. That brings us to audience participation. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? If so, please come forward and we will get a microphone if the clerk's office would assist. And if you would go ahead and state your name for the record, I will set the timer for 3 minutes and I'll wave my arms when it gets to be 30 seconds.
Hello, everyone. I'm Celeste Hodge Grouden, and I am the president and CEO of the Alaska Black Caucus. I did not plan to share any comments, but I could not, without coming forward. There's no way I could not take the seat to publicly again say thank you. Thank you again for your support. And yes, while well, specifically me, receive emails that speak against Black people, I know from the actions that you take that you definitely speak up, stand up for communities of color, in particular, Black people right now is what I'm talking about. So I say, thank you. It's a new day begun with this funding. We are going to be able to continue to move the needle in a much larger way, though. And so, thank you.
Thank you for your participation. Are there any other members of the public who wish to participate? If so, please come forward. I do not see anyone or hear anyone here in the room. So with that, we will move on to assembly member comments. We will start with members on the phone. Ms. Allard?
No comment.
Thank you, Ms. Allard. Mr. Solt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll just make a few comments. So I hope in the future we could communicate better between the Assembly and the mayor. I hope the vetoes and the overrides slows down, that through our communication, we align better on a plan. I'm looking forward to the mayor's plan for this winter coming out soon. And my hope is that the task force will support that plan and take the efforts that they have done so far and will continue to do to make that plan better, and that the mayor will adopt those plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solt. Mr. Perez Verdia, any comments? Okay. Ms. Quinn Davidson, any comments? We'll go around.
Just to say thanks to my colleagues for a lot of good conversations today, and in particular, some of the collaboration I think we're seeing around these important issues.
Thank you, Ms. Quinn Davidson. We'll go ahead around the room here. Mr. Cross?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we called the question, so I couldn't speak to kind of the matter, but I appreciate the opportunity now. If I buy you a piece of cake and I throw it in your face, don't be surprised if the individual doesn't appreciate your cake. And I love the task force. I want to be part of the solution. I think part of the issue is in our delivery. When we created task force, all we did was sit there and bash the mayor for a problem that existed for decades, and said, "Why aren't you acting quick enough? And you're not good enough, and you're not quick enough. So we're going to do this." There's a better way to approach that message, and that is, we recognize that we're part of the government. We're equal. We're separate but equal. Our fingerprints are in this problem, and we want to be part of the solution. We look forward to seeing your plan, and we look forward to working with you. Allow us to continue on our own to bring forth ideas on how to solve this problem, and let's celebrate this new energy to resolve an issue that's existed for decades. I think that's much warmer than the way we delivered the cake. And so I look forward to being part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Mr. Constant?
So I don't necessarily agree with that framing, just because we have been working and we're just trying to figure out a way to crack the egg and get them to do their part. And it feels like we're on a treadmill. But that wasn't the point for my comments. What I want to say, Mr. Cross, is that today I appreciate you demonstrated how to disagree and express how you were misinterpreted, misquoted, or in some way not properly heard. And you did it in a way that honored the order. And I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. And I will just add that as separate but equal branches of government in our respective roles, the executive branch and the legislative branch rely on each other, and residents of the municipality are best served when we can work together, when we can collaborate, when there is transparency and openness and sharing of information. And so I am hopeful that as we continue to move forward with what is very clearly a supported community effort to address homelessness, that there is a renewed commitment by all parties to share information, because frankly, on the legislative side, we rely on the administration for that information and to execute the functions of government. And I will just close by saying thank you all for being here today. We went over the scheduled time and had to extend a few times, and I very much appreciate the effort and thoughtful comments. And that brings us now to adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We are adjourned.